you go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us again here on Aspiration Inspiration with me, Jayson George, where as always we aspire to inspire before we expire. And today our guest is only Emo Adams. Emo, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure being here, man. How's it going?
Lekker, lekker. It's good. I didn't want to start with the, was it lekker, is it lekker, that type of thing. That's your thing. That's your thing to do. But thank you so much for joining me today. And as I say, look, we just want to inspire the next generation and people that look up to you, and just want to share a bit about your story. So without any further ado, I think let's get into that. A lot of people know you from seeing your face on TV. They see you always performing. And but talk to us about Emo Adams. Where did you grow up? Talk to us about where you grew up, and how did that influence where you are today?
Awesome. Well, Jayson, let me first start by saying thank you so much for creating the platform so that people can somewhat find a deeper meaning and understanding of the people that have surpassed what people think they could do coming from Mitchell's Plain. I think that is ultimately the story, that people beating the odds every time the dra mense say Mitchell's Plain, I think mense net like, oh my bro, alweer. But I mean, thank you for breaking that stereotype. So for Mitchell's Plain out there, I'm from Eastridge originally, and then we moved to Strandfontein because we tried to be posh, and then that didn't work out because we were yalla ghetto.
but surely Strandfontein is part of Mitchell's Plain, Emo. Come on.
Well, yeah, but daar's meer 'n vas lig daarso. Daar's nie meer seelig.
Okay, point taken.
Right. And then we moved back to Eastridge, and now my mom still resides in Lentegeur. And I have to be honest about my career. Whether I chose this career or whether this career chose me, I don't know. All I know is that my dad kind of forced me into Malay choirs and Kaapse Klopse and all of these things. And I think one thing led to another, and it eventually evolved to where I am today. So as ons terugkyk na die youth, with it being Youth Month, how do we get to that level of excellence? The answer is, if it was easy, everybody would be famous.
Yeah.
If it was easy, everybody would do it. And it's not just with fame. It's whether you studied law, whether you studied plumbing, whether you've got an architect. If it was easy, everyone would have the highest job in every company. So I think what is the fault with us, and not with youth, the fault with us, is the fact that we live up to the vision, but not to the struggle. Like, we like seeing ourselves on stage famous, but we don't want to go through the trials and tribulations to get there.
Yeah.
We would like seeing a picture where you stand in front of a Ferrari, but you don't like saving up to buy the Ferrari. You like if I can tell you now, like, listen, bro, I'm going to make it the biggest thing that this world has ever seen. You be like, yeah. And then I'm going to be like, but in 30 years from now, because it's going to be a slow process, you're going to be like, nah, that's not a quite idea. So I think dealing with resources, one, and education. And yes, people will say that they're handicapped because there is no resources. But if you have the ability to be on Facebook for an hour, you have the same ability to Google, how do I make it in my field?
Yeah.
Because as you know, this information is accessible. Back then, kyk jy, it's a gesukkel. As nie 'n plainsman het, then you weren't in the know. Sy moet 'n plainsman gelees het om te weet wat gaan aan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But now, with most people, sodra jy jou phone optel, everything that's happening in the world is in your hand. And so I think the one thing that I've learned, and een ding wat my pa my altyd gesê het, is like, ek worry nie wat sy doen nie, doen dit net kwaai. Like, be the best at it. You know what I mean? And so it's one of those things of like, I made it my mission to just know things.
Yeah.
If I want to know a field, I just know. That's what made me go from 'n laaitjie van 'n gemeenskap wat net wou sing, and then eventually you become the lead in that show. Eventually you become a stage manager. Eventually you start directing, then producing, then executive producing. Like you have to also respect the journey. It can't
Yes.
just be bam bam. So
Yeah.
wat ek vind ook die meeste van die tyd is like die mense wat wel nou fame gekry het, I call it social media famous, because sy is nou famous tot die volgende TikTok video, dan het sy nie meer famous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to be famous, ja, daar's 'n ander storie wat
Yeah.
that was now a long answer, but my point is just I don't think where you come from define who you're going to become.
Yeah. And that's
I think where you come
powerful.
from defines what the vision should be. You should get into the know, which means you should educate yourself in the field, whether it's through Google, WhatsApp, Facebook, like finne uit enige ding, the information is accessible, and you might not be the next Emo, but there will be an avenue for you, and you will have your own audience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not about competing, and that's why I don't really knock people, because I can see the hustle and the struggle that they put into to get where they are.
And talk to us a bit about that, Emo, because you said that it started out, you being a singer, like you might not sing. How much of your journey, you're very talented. They can sing, they can dance, there's a comedian, alles, and you can do all. How much of it is hard work as opposed to talent?
I mean, I'm not gonna put you up for a one. Yeah, I'm not talented overall. I'm just good. I just know what's my weakness. That is the thing. It's not about being talented. I like so many can quite sing, but they still don't know what's their strength. You know what I mean? Like a song can start, and before the song starts, I can already hear this number's too high for me. Ek gaan nie daar uitkom nie. You know what I mean? Other people will be like, only once they get to the bridge and they realize, ek kan nie meer. So I don't think it's about being talented. I just think it's being honest with yourself about what is your weakness.
Yeah.
And the skill that I have attained over these few years is myne. Ek het hy gehou. Ek weet wat's my sterk, and because I know what's my weakness, I know what's my strength. You know what I mean? So baie mense kan vir my sê, baie mense sal sê, kykie, nah, look, man sal vir jou stukkend sing. Yes, rightfully so. But ek can perform. You know what I mean? I'm gonna put up a fight. It's not gonna go down light. I'm gonna put up a fight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. And I feel you have that honesty with yourself, then the audience will respect that honesty.
Yeah. Kyk, you already
that's what ek voel. So
yeah.
Ek voel net
that you already answered one of my.
Ek drink koffie.
Oh ja, ek gaan maar praat terwyl ek koffie drink. You already answered my question that look man, ek wil gevra who sings better, you or look man, because there's always that talk, but and I'm sure there's a bit of a sibling rivalry there. But your day, Emo, in all the stuff that you do, take us through a typical day or typical week of Emo Adams.
It's difficult to say because I'm working on such a lot of different entities. So the one thing COVID has taught me is to know your kids' names. Maar nou sê ek elke dag by die huis, nou moet hulle name ken. So my typical day, I would say, starts as a father, because that's the most important thing for me first. As a father to the kids, and then a husband to my wife. That is because at the end of the day, they kind of the anchor that solidifies who I am.
Yeah.
So everything that I do would go around that first. Then it gets to business. Now, when it comes to business, besides the me being on stage, I've obviously now grown into a role where I produce shows and executive produce shows and direct shows. So most of the days is usually like this, Zoom meetings and closing deals and stuff. And then on the side, my wife and I, we also own a coffee shop and a mom salon. We also own a salon for mommies. And we are branding that out now. Yeah, extending that brand out.
Yeah.
And that is, and that you have to juggle between running errands and school runs. School runs is the most important thing. Like that is next level, bro. That is next level.
Yeah.
If you do
imagine.
Like I thought I was like you think you're a good dad, but in COVID het sy geleer, ek was maar net 'n screensaver pa. Like you were dad because you only saw the good things, and now when you're with them at home, you get to like see your kids, and you really get to know their kids and their personalities, and dan raak jy sommer 'n teacher. So that's one of the skills, like becoming a teacher over COVID. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that with us. And I mean, you're Emo Adams, and everyone sees you as this guy that's on the screen all the time. But I think sometimes we forget that Emo is also human. He's also human, and he has these other roles to manage at home with the wife and the kids, and we can appreciate that. And
I think that's the biggest, sorry to break your word, I think that's the biggest misconception, that many times when people see you, obviously they see you in a certain light. And that's cool, because that's how you like exposed yourself to them. You know what I mean? But then there's other facets, like people don't know that I'm an introvert. I suffer from anxiety like heavy bad.
I didn't know that.
I don't like a lot of people around. I don't like people around me, which is weird, because then you think like, but if you don't like people around you, why are you doing what you're doing? But I also like making things light in life, making people understand. Yeah, ons almal het swaar gekry, but now let's look at the positive. Let's look at the positive of swaar kry. Let's look at the positive of how do we change circumstance. Let's look at the positive of these things. You know what I mean? That is why I continue. So besides the fact that I'm an introvert, besides the fact that I suffer from anxiety, this is the reason why I still do what I do.
Yeah, that's actually amazing. And one of my questions was going to be, everyone sees you as this funny guy, always happy, hip and go. But how do you, when you do face your tough times, how do you get through those times?
I think you face it with grace and humility and being humbled. But soos ek sê, your family, my bro, they are like that. That is why I do what I do. And I'm not just talking about my own family. I'm talking about the extended family, my in-laws, my parents, my brother and his family. Like everyone plays a pivotal role within that circle. So it doesn't always, I mean, COVID has now taught us that it doesn't always go good. Sometimes it can go bad. And then you find whether you're going to stand up and become resilient and see how you adjust, or if you're going to fold. En daarom sê ek, vir die youngsters voel ek net dat hulle wil nie deur die struggles gaan nie. Like it's not, no journey that's successful is easy. If there's anything that's easy, then there's 15 others that can also do it. That's the only thing you remember. If it's easy and you made it, then there's 15 other people that can do the exact same thing.
Yeah, very profound words. Emo, the entertainment industry, there's a lot of criticism on being financially successful, because people look at you guys and they're like, yo, that man is living the life. And for a lot of entertainers in the industry, or artists, in the industry. That is not necessarily the case. How, you know, and I'm not saying that you have, but how do you think artists can build, you know, more financially sustainable careers for themselves?
That's a very good question, and that question has a lot of factors to it. For instance, if you immediately break it down between Johannesburg and Cape Town, the investments from private corporations that invest in artists in Joburg succeeds a lot more than what in Cape Town. So for instance, Mikasa can perform in Johannesburg, charge 100,000, immediately gets 100,000. No questions, no nothing. Emo Adams gets a corporate, say 100,000. They're like, nah, my bro, 100,000, I didn't know you from, you know? So the first thing you have to do is try to create perspective. And perspective is, okay, if I was a builder and I tell you your house is 2.8 million rand and I have to build it for you, you're not going to come to me and say like, nah, but I know you. Because knowing me has got nothing to do with it, with the skill that I'm giving you. Because knowing me is not the value. My skill is the value.
Yes.
So that is the first perception that we need to break. Okay. I find in Cape Town more so it's acceptable, so to say, where corporations don't necessarily want to cough up money. And the downfall of that is like when you do community work, then you will never change your circumstance because you end up always doing community work. And whether it's a sing for frikadelle or a goodie bag or whatever, you also doing it to change your circumstance.
Yes.
Right? Without forgetting the community, right?
Yeah.
So you're trying to be reasonable. And so it's weird for me in that regard because now you have to think about it. The highest cost of living is in Cape Town. If you buy a 1.8 house in Joburg, gaan jy 'n groot huis kry. In die Kaap 'n klein huis. So it shows the cost of living goes up. But how do you explain that 10 years ago, show tickets was 120 rand? 10 years later, it's still 120 rand. And people complain about that 120 rand. You know what I mean? So I think the first thing is, the reason why I'm firm in business is because I remind people over and over, this is my value.
Yeah.
The brand of Emo Adams has a value, and that is the value. And if you can't afford it, then it's fine. I can find you then someone cheaper. But maybe I'm not the guy. It's only because you have to eventually be like, kyk, die baksteen kost R250 baksteen, ek maak keer 1,000, ek moet daarvoor betaal.
Yeah.
If I want my house to stand 20, 30 years, I have to come up with the money and pay for it. And that is right. That's the first thing. So the system in the entertainment industry in that regard is broken.
Yeah.
Secondly, there is no institutions that offer business sense to entertainers. You don't get an entertainment insurance. You don't get a entertainer income protector. You don't get a insurance fund or bursaries or any of the sort that makes sure that the entertainment in this country has a blanket.
Yes.
That if anything goes wrong, there is a blanket that will cover you, right? And because entertainment is still not seen as a 9-to-5 job, we will never get the perks of somebody that does. So dan, tot 'n sekere mate moet jy verstaan is moeilik en is 'n baie moeilike pil om te sluk as jy moet uitvind dat 'n telemarketer wat sit en net fone optel, it better perks as you that has to leave your family, get into the car, drive on the road, go from town to town, sleep in your car, eat wherever you can. And if anything goes wrong, the person answering the calls has better perks than what you do.
Just so.
Right? Yeah. So with that being taken into consideration is why people charge you the amount of money they do.
Yeah.
Because they don't have that blanket. So they kind of asking, kyk, betaal ons 'n VAT, betaal ons 'n tax, our UIF, all of those things factored into it. Because at the end of the day, we are not a corporation, but we still get taxed like we're a corporation.
Just so. That puts things in perspective. Yeah.
Right. So it's weird for me that you complain sometimes, and this is not everybody. This is literally a few, but I'm just giving you the example of the mindset that we need to try and change within the communities as well as the business institutions. That jy gaan nooit 120 rand spandeer vir 'n show nie. How many guys geld kry, but then you buy your kid 4,500 rand taxis. Of as a streetwise two is 120 rand. So do you get what I'm saying? It's like you're comparing, and as I said, this is a 10-year thing. I could go back 20 years, the price would still be the same. So I think in order for the arts to survive, and this is not the audience's fault. We need more corporations to come in and be like, yo, this is our lighties, and this is there's a rule in Malaysia. This is the most beautiful rule. We were there for a year with the group Jag. They've got a rule that the amount of CDs and local artists that you support is the amount of CDs and international artists that they will import. Maak my sense? Which means if you only
have to support them.
So if you only support your local artists 1%, they will only bring in 1% of international artists. And because they've implemented that strategy, any local artist can fill stadiums, can fill venues. They sell out to the point where they respect their own artists a lot more than international artists.
Yeah.
And so once again, you have to look at the mindset, because jy moet vir die mense explain, okay, sy wil vir Ed Sheeran gaan kyk, cool. Maar elke keer as sy geld spend, gaan die geld uit die land uit na hulle land toe.
Yeah.
Which means you're making our economy weaker.
Sure, that puts a lot of things in perspective for me. Yeah, because and it's not just in entertainment industries, in a lot of industries, my profession being a lawyer, people come to me, they're like, free legal advice, because you're around the corner from me, you grew up in front of me, and people have issues, and you just have to assist people for free, and sometimes you don't mind, but people start taking advantage of that, and they, as you say, they start quoting that whenever you have to charge them now, whenever you have to write the bill, then that pops up, and I think we cripple each other like that. We don't move forward like that. Emo, a few more questions. Just on your, you from being the boys from Mitchell's Plain, and from my perspective, ek het vir Johan Stem op die TV gekyk, and all these other people, and what did the opportunity mean for you when you became the host of Noot for Noot? What did it mean for you and your career? Can you share a little bit of reflection with us on that?
Dude, I mean, even when I look at it, even when I look back at it now, it's still surreal. Like I still can't fathom that phone call happened. And because when it did, I was like, nah. But you know what? When I look back, I think my dad putting me in the Malay choir, my dad putting me in the Kaapse Klopse, my dad exposing me to albums of the Carpenters and Chicago and ABBA and all of those cats in Afrikaans, Gey Kosten and the Yellow Works, Groep 2. I think, and that's what I talk about, 30 years. You become an overnight success, but it took you 30 years to become an overnight success. Where I think, without my dad knowing, that was kind of what he was honing me to be. Because everything from the Malay choir to the Kaapse Klopse to everything that I've attained with David Kramer and the late great Tally Peterson was all knowledge then that amalgamated into me stepping in as a presenter role. And if I did not have those experiences, I might not have been ready for that challenge. You know what I mean? It's like somebody that wants to climb Kilimanjaro. He doesn't just wake up and decide.
One morning.
No, there's prep work, practicing to see, you know, can your body withstand certain temperatures? How far can you walk? How long can you walk? How far can you go without food and water? And there's a whole rhythm thing. And I think I'm very grateful for my dad for exposing me to these different entities, crossing racial boundaries, because he could have been like, nah, ek wil hê Afrikaans songs luister en ek wil hê, but he exposed me to it. Now learn the song, sing Afrikaans. Yeah. So there was a certain pride when the announcement happened. I knew a year before it was announced. Sure. And the first time I said no, only because I respected Noot for Noot as much as everyone else, because it's like you can't picture Noot for Noot without you unstem it. It's just like it's like listening to the news without Rian Kruiwagen.
Yeah.
Like one of those things where you know, wie ever die nuus lees agter hom, prakak. Kan nie waar. Like, so you need to get your head around it, you know. So when I said no, it was based on those things. I said no based on the fact that, but people have seen you in this role. Nou kom die lady, 'n ander lady, 'n colored lady, and I mean that is just gonna create a whole. But if there's one thing that I think I'm very good at, is criticism becomes my fuel. Like I've heard a lot of no's in my life, and I heard a lot of you can't do it, and I've heard a lot of. But if I look back at your show met Emo, the first time I pitched it to KykNet, they said no, and then myself and my manager back then, we went to go borrow money to shoot it on our own.
Sure.
Then we shot it, and then we went back to the channel, and then they said, wow, this is kwai. Yeah, what is this? And then we were like, this was what we were talking about. This was the show. This was the show that I pitched. You know, so I'm not a stranger to no, and I'm not a stranger to negativity, because somehow it becomes my fuel. And a lot of people see negative in negativity, but I see the positive in negativity, because it allows you to prove people wrong. And two, it shows you where people's mindset is at and what you should improve on. If people are concerned about certain things, you can be like, oh, let's go worry that, or maybe I should then restructure my strategy and then come out like this and come out like that. And you know what I mean? So that's why when it comes to negativity, which we then got from Noot for Noot, because obviously there's a stock standard audience also that comes with it. I had to relate to this audience. I'm not changing the show. It's the same show. It's just a different feel. You know. And when you do watch Noot for Noot, you'll also see that ek begin baie sturvy. Maar agterna rafel ek uit. And that was a strategic plan. Because you don't want to alienate the existing audience. You need to make them feel comfortable first. And then once they're comfortable, no trek ze hulle saam met jou. Until they get you are, then they're like, okay, it's not as bad as I thought. And I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Our ratings on episode 1 through the roof. And that's all thanks to Johan Stemmet, because it's the first guy you see on TV, and then you meet him, and he's even better in person. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
No, I can only imagine. And sorry to ask you. So now you have your, you started Maak My Famous. And this will be my last two questions before we part. You started Maak My Famous, and talk to us a bit about the inspiration of that show and what you hope to achieve with it, and just your general feel of the prospects of the show moving forward.
Maak My Famous is one of that shows that also I think it was at Mnet or Cakenet for like 2 years before they eventually decided, okay, let's give this a try. But I mean, it was very easy. I started an open mic night at my theater, and I was like, yo, if this talent is here by my theater, what talent is at other theaters or in other places or in other dorpies or in other, it would be quite interesting to see. And that kind of planted the seed. And then one day I was watching, I think it was like Idols or something like that. And then I was just like, nah. Julle kan nie ons laities afdruk die hele tyd nie. Like, and I understand it's for entertainment value, and I understand all of that, but this is cut. This needs to change because you're sending the wrong message. And so my show was then designed about how do you find raw talent, any talent in the platform, without undermining them.
Yeah.
And at the same time, when they're there, because a lot of people don't know, they are with us for about 2 days before you see them on air. And in that time, all the talents get a crash course on show business.
Yeah.
How to conduct themselves on show business, how to conduct themselves on social media, clothing, money, management, brand management.
Sure.
How to carry yourself on stage. Like they get almost like a crash, because the aim is that you, even if you don't win, you win in knowledge.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that you feel empowered leaving. And I think that for me was the most important thing about Maak My Famous, where it was weird, where some nights people would leave and everybody would just cry. And this is like round 1, round 2, round 3. That's because actually on season 1, it's like, even if people get voted out, they come back to watch the next person. They just want to stand around and hang around. And so it became a very good camaraderie. And then the only twist of the show was, in Idols, usually people, the judges vote the top 10 and then the people vote. And the twist with Maak My Famous was, well, if the audience is the person buying the ticket, shouldn't they vote from day one? That was kind of the twist. And when we got to that, that's when CakeNet said, we have a show. We have a show. So obviously, due to COVID, we had to postpone the recording for this year, because it makes it very difficult, keeping in mind we usually fly in 48 contestants, and then you have to house them for 2.5 weeks for isolation, COVID testings, all of that.
Yeah.
It's a big budget, and it's a big doing. So we thought to rather shelve it for the rest of the year, and then we look at it again next year, depending on whether people are vaccinated or flip egg with the. I don't know where we're gonna.
Yeah.
We're gonna end up.
No, Emo, thank you very much for sharing that and for getting deeper into a bit about what you've done and what you've accomplished thus far. And I mean, for someone being from Mitchell's Plain as well, looking into what you're doing, it's really, really inspiring. And may you grow from strength to strength, and may you continue doing what you are doing. And you've already answered my questions about what you say to the naysayers, and continue, just pushing forward and breaking boundaries. Just the last question, your message of hope for young people out there, watching this. What do you want him to take away from this conversation between you and I?
Wow. That's a good question, man. I mean, I would want people to learn from my mistakes. I think my biggest obstacle when I was younger was my ego. Don't let your ego get the best of you. Respect the people that has done it before you. Steal with your eye. Learn, watch, observe. Don't talk, just do. Because a lot of people, nah, jy sien wat ek gaan doen, ek gaan die doen, moet niks sê nie. Hulle moet vir jou kry by die finish line. They must be like, how did this nigger do it? Work hard. Work so hard that you don't have to introduce yourself when you walk into a room. And then when you walk into a room, still introduce yourself. Because don't for 1 second think that everybody should know who you are. Treat your craft with respect. And with respect meaning, moenie dink jy is all that. Hou vir jou, find what's your rhythm in your level and sustain that. Daarom kom ek kom nie soos 'n malletje in 'n kamer nie, because then people will expect that energy all the time. Ek kom in honor. You know, if I look back at my accolades, it's all things that I didn't expect, one, because I don't do it for accolades. And two, that is how you silence the naysayers. Hulle praat, en dan reply jy met de. Praat, en dan reply jy met de.
That should be on a t-shirt, actually.
Yeah, imagine that. That would be so awesome. And be open to criticism. You're going to find it. Be open to negativity, but don't take it personal. You know, social media and the social media platforms has become a thing where talking about negativity and bullying and just speaking your mind has become the norm and has become acceptable, and it's not. So I want people to then go back onto my social media pages and go see moments when there was negativity and see how many times I replied. 0. Because many times when that happens, it's you that have a problem with me. I don't have a problem with you. I love you. I think you're amazing. You're fantastic. And it's like Casper the Vries said back in the day, I say nie vir hom likey, change the channel. You don't need to write the open letter and you know, 'n raak 'n hele vibe en skryf dit op 'n billboard and just change the channel. Hou it for yourself, because there's certain things I don't like. You know what I mean? Ek hou nie van so mense eet tong, ek eet die tongie.
Yes.
But I'm not gonna write the whole 5-page paragraph about it and make it an issue, net because ek soek nou manskap om saam met my te staan om te sê, yo, kyk, verstaan jy wat ek mean? And because I've been disciplined and because I respect and love myself, I will fear no other. I'm not the most talented in the room, but I will kill you with determination. Yes. Because I have learned, if I don't know, then I will get into the know.
Yeah.
Ek gaan my huis doen sodat as ek vir jou gaan challenge, hoor wat ek vir jou nou sê, I will kill you. And not physically, I just mean in the field that we are talking about.
Yeah.
Because that is why I don't respond to negativity, because you have to choose your battles. You can't fight every battle and you can't win every battle. And life, what ek geleer het is, wat vir my hier gebring het, was the hardship, was the problems, was the negativity, was the no food in the house, no money in the house. Almal daai goedes het vir my gebring waar ek is. So just to go back on your point, surprisingly, if I die, will my family be financially sound? Definitely. Why? Because I've learned from those who didn't have time to do it the right way.
Sure.
I learned from the Tyler Petersons. I learned from the Zane Adams. I learned from Robbie Jansen, Ricardo Groenewald that sang "I Love You, Daddy." Saline Surti Richards, who we just lost now. It's unfair that we have to live poor and die poor. So from an early age, it was for me more important. Okay, yeah, she's talented. Sit gewoon net hy weg. She's not talented. Just put that on the shelf. The term is show business. So put the show on the shelf. Business. How do we conduct ourselves business? And that is the one thing people don't know about me. Yes, I am funny. And they like for me, and as mense my sien in 'n mall, lag hulle sommer. But I am ruthless when it comes to business. Because I want to feed my family. I want to feed my mom and my dad. I want to feed the extended, my band members and their families. It's a circle. It's a circle. So if I don't eat, they don't eat. And I've adapted the scenario. If I'm not making that money, somebody else is. So I might as well make the money. So somewhere it has to become business. Yeah, also brass and also chummies in a school, but somewhere if you want to be taken serious, you would have to conduct it like a business.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Just drops mic. Huh? Thank you so much, Emo. Yo. A lot of profound words shared today, and really, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, man.
Story. Yeah. And yeah, man.
Thank you for this amazing platform. I think it's important for youth. And because the wonderful thing about this platform, it doesn't just live now, it lives forever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And even if we inspire one light, then we've done what we needed to do.
Yeah.
So thank you.
100%. No problem. Thank you so much. And with that, I think we'll close. Thank you so much, Emo Adams, and thank you so much to our viewers out there and our listeners. Thank you for joining us today on Aspiration Inspiration, where, as always, we aspire to inspire before we expire. Thank you.